Welcome back, everybody, to the Two-Point Conversion NFL DFS podcast, your Week 3 edition. Joined once again by Bucks. You can find him on Twitter at BPSnow11. Bucks, how we doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Bubba. Always a pleasure.
Great. And then James, as always, you can find him on dailyroto.com and on Twitter at paydirt_DFS. James, how we doing?
What up? Doing okay. If the Astros can get it together against James Shields, I'll be doing better.
Yeah, you got to love baseball, don't you? Somehow the Padres can hit 3 straight good Diamondbacks pitchers 3 nights in a row. Go figure. But this isn't a baseball podcast. This is NFL. So let's get at it. Real quick recap of last week. A little bit more of what we expected, but still a lot of scratching your heads. Buck, how did we do?
Did pretty well. I broke even, which for a GPP-only player is awesome. So my week hinged on a few core plays. I had J.J. Nelson everywhere, so him alone held everybody else together. So it was good.
Yeah, he was huge. What about you, James? How'd we do?
I didn't have very much J.J. Nelson. I did not do super well. I had a lot of Larry Fitzgerald. Those two statements pretty much will define how my week went. I had Larry Fitz in cash. I also had a couple other guys just severely underperform. It was actually so bad that I had to try to make like a super drastic swap off of Julio Jones and Ty Montgomery in my cash lineup.
Oh, man.
But it gets so much better. I swapped off of them to Devontae Freeman and Jordy Nelson.
Oh.
Right? Right? How could that have gone worse for me? Worst could I have run last week? So no JJ Nelson, had Jordy Nelson. That's my week.
I hope you believe in the due theory.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
because you're due.
Yeah, you basically hit every landmine I think you could have found. That's pretty much what you got there.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Luckily, I didn't have any Jordy Nelson, but Fitz and oh man, your boy the Redskins. Why am I blanking on
Terrell Pryor?
Pryor crushed me.
Yep.
I still did well for the most part, kind of like you, Bucks. I broke even, pretty much all GPP, but I had an amazing lineup with Fitz and Pryor on them. If they each just get double-digit points, we're looking at a pretty solid return. But
yeah,
it is what it is. And that's why we are back at it, breaking down week 3. We'll go game by game like last week. We'll kick it off Thursday night special. We got Color Rush, Rams at Niners. Rams 2.5-point favorites, over under 39.5. Bucks, anything you like in this ball game?
I'm just not a fan of the Thursday night game. I mean, I would play Gurley, obviously. But outside of that, I'm pretty much avoiding it altogether.
Yeah, that's a sentiment many share. What about you, James? Anything catching your eye in this one?
I mean, no, not really. I still think that Todd Gurley is #bad, so I'm probably not going to play him much this year at all. I do have him in my –
So are the Niners.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, definitely. But, I don't know. I have him in my Monday, Thursday. Todd Gurley would be one of the options. I think Cooper Kupp is really good at football, so I might have interest there. And then Carlos Hyde is the man, and I will play Carlos Hyde whenever I have the chance. But that's it. I don't want anything.
Ageless wonder.
Yeah, that's pretty much I'm not big on the Thursday night games. If you're looking that way, you're looking at pretty much the running backs, Gurley and Hyde. Outside of that, you can take darts on the receivers, but I really don't feel it. I'd rather take my gambles elsewhere, as I've learned the first 2 weeks. Maybe not spreading it over the whole slate's the best idea. Let's just focus on a couple and live or die. That might be the philosophy going forward. We have our first England game, 6:30 in the morning on the Pacific Coast, 9:30 for you East Coasters. Beautiful football. And it's Jacksonville's yearly trip. We got Baltimore hosting the Ravens, technically. The Ravens 4-point favorites, another over-under at 39.5, a trend we will see a lot of like 42s and belows this week, and then a couple biggies. So we'll let James kick us off with this one in England.
I mean, Joe Flacco is still looking like super mediocre. The volume is there, but he's just so underwhelming every week. And I had him in cash last week. More indication of how bad my week went. But just I don't really have interest there. Jacksonville's defense looked really beatable, though. And I think that maybe not this game, but moving forward, it's important to look at Jacksonville as a boom or bust option, kind of like Kansas City, not something like Seattle like they seemed like in the first week. They do get pressure, but not very much of it. It's the beginning of the season. We don't really know how things are really set. But Flacco is underwhelming. I do like Javoris Allen. I talked about him last week. I really liked him going into that week, and he performed fantastic. Terrence West only saw 4 snaps. He was dealing with some soft tissue injuries. So he's missing practice right now. If Allen is the main guy again, he's going to eat. He's going to absolutely eat because he's the main receiving back out of the backfield. He has moves. He's a good athlete. So I like Javoris Allen in this game. On the Jacksonville side, we have Marquise Lee rated really, really well. Just because him and Hearns are basically the guys in Jacksonville now, and they're going to hold Bortles to as few pass attempts as they can, but Marquise Lee is still going to eat targets up. So I don't know. I think that I prefer, if anything, Javoris Allen and the Baltimore defense. And if you wanted to pair those two together as a correlation play, I like that.
Yeah, not bad at all. One thing you mentioned with West before we go to you, Bucks, there were a lot of interesting injuries last week that people started saying, this guy lost out playing time to this guy. So just keep an eye on it. Doesn't mean someone lost their role with the team, but it could be very big. As we mentioned in our strategy pieces at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of cheap backups that could have huge weeks. Allen's 5K, but we'll have other positions we'll talk about later to keep an eye on throughout the week. So, Bucks, what are you looking at in this ballgame?
Yeah, I mean, I much like the Thursday night game, I'm not a huge fan of this London game. I mean, and if you're the NFL, right, and you're trying to grow the game, why in the hell are you sending Jacksonville and the Ravens over there? I mean, good Lord.
I agree.
give them a game. But I mean, I'm not a huge Flacco fan in general, and I don't like this spot, especially like James said, he's been mediocre at best, and they're in London. The receiving horror. I mean, I guess you could talk a little bit about Macklin, but either way, I'm avoiding it. Hearns, I do think, has a shot to have a good game this week. But even then, Macklin and Hearns I have outside my top 25 this week, so I'm not touching them primarily. I'm not touching any of the running backs. I do like Allen, but I feel like this game is just going to be some sloppy defensive mess. And I do like the Jacksonville D this week because I think Flacco, typical early mid-season Flacco, is going to make some ridiculous mistakes, and Jacksonville might score 14 points on their defense and win 14-7 or something stupid like that. So
yeah, that's a good call because this game is always sloppy. Always, like the weirdest stuff happens. Like a defender, like a DB falls down, now a guy's wide open for a 50-yard touchdown. There's a lot of defensive, scoring involved. Both D's are in play. Obviously, like the Ravens more, but if you want to be contrarian, like in a GPP angle, you could look Jacksonville. I think Hearns and Marquise Lee are both in play. Hearns is like your big play guy, but Lee, he did see the volume last week, and I think that'll continue, especially with the Jags team. We saw the first game of garbage time last week, so we very well could see it again this week if, Bortles starts out throwing picks or doing something crazy. But I say if cash games especially, your safest play, if he's the full-time guy, is Allen for the Ravens. Other than that, I'd stay away. And if you're only playing the Sunday-only 13-game slate, you can't play it anyways. So it's okay.
I do.
Let's move on to that.
I do have one more thing on this game. Watson saw like 8 targets last week.
Yeah, man, he's a solid.
And I know that he's like 48 and has to leave his walker on the sideline, but that dude can ball still. Like he had a jumping.
Where else is he throwing it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's
like
the thing,
he loves throwing to his tight ends. We know that Flacco likes these shorter passes. So that's a good GPP option. I think 8 targets is sustainable. It's not like he had like 16 targets or anything like that. It was sustainable. It won't be 100% catch rate, obviously, but I do think that he's a pretty good chance for another touchdown, another 16 targets.
Yeah, I have him for 5 for 45 right now.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
yeah, that's a very good call because he's going to fill that Dennis Pitta role. Remember how much Flacco loved Pitta, especially in the red zone. Yeah. So Watson, we know, can catch those touchdowns. So it's definitely a good play if you want to be a little different and pivot off guys that we'll talk about later in the same price range. Going to be very, very popular this week. Now to the Sunday slate, 13 games. Falcons at Lions. This is one of our big boys. One of our 250-plus totals, 50.5. Atlanta is a 3-point road favorite. Bucks kick us off in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, this game is the way both teams have been playing, especially Detroit. I mean, Ryan and Stafford are both in play here. Stafford at 6,200 is beautiful. So I have him at 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, could go for more. Theo Riddick is one of my most consistent plays on DraftKings. I play that guy all the time. Love playing him. Lions love getting him the ball too. So I think with this being a potential shootout, this is a great spot for him to showcase some of that talent. So I'm all in for probably like 5 rushes for maybe 20 yards, but I think he has like 6 catches, a touchdown. So love that. Freeman's a solid, I guess, option. But really, I mean, the focus here is the pass game, right? So Julio's always in play, especially for what could be a pretty tight game, high scoring. But for $4,800 cheaper, I love Sanu this week. I think Sanu has more targets than Julio right now. And if Slay somehow shadows Julio all day, then I think Sanu has the opportunity to catch 6-7 balls easy. So I think that he'll be a safety net for Ryan. And if he can somehow get in the end zone, he's going to be ridiculous value this week. I love Golden Tate. Not a huge fan of this price tag this week. There's a lot of really good options around that same price point. But he's going to see probably 10 targets this game. So, but I think what I really like this game outside of Sanu, and I think he'll be popular this week, is $3,300. Eric Ebron.
Yep.
I mean, he's a solid option. He is clutch, and I think the Falcons are going to struggle keeping him contained. So I like him.
I like all of it. James, what are you looking at in this game?
So, yeah, this is 2 teams that generally pass over 60% of the time on their plays. We have Atlanta projected for 57 plays right now. We have Detroit projected for 62. Both of them,
That's insane.
Yeah, both of them pass more than 60% of the time in the red zone. So this game is a passing attack. I think Matthew Stafford is going to be the chalk in cash games. I think he'll be super, super popular in GPPs. We have him projected really well. I think he's one of our better values. The only issue that I come up with this game is that the Atlanta pass rush is pretty brutal. Like, it's really good. They were able to get to Aaron Rodgers, and I know that Rodgers was missing his tackles, but it's a really brutal pass rush, and Matthew Stafford is not incredibly good under pressure. So we can assume that Detroit is going to be playing from behind and that Atlanta's going to bring that pass rush, and that kind of worries me. But it also it reinforces that love for Theo Riddick. Yeah. I agree with you on that. I really, really like Theo Riddick out of the backfield in this game. And I really like Golden Tate as well.
Click.
I'm not super into Marvin Jones or Kenny Golladay really, because I don't think that he's going to have the time to really get it to them. And realistically, Desmond Trufant and the other dude over on the other side, I can't remember his name, they're good corners. But they don't get like lockdown numbers, they're good corners. So I don't know. I like Matthew Stafford, but I don't think that I really trust him in GPPs. I don't think the upside is there. I like him for cash because he's going to be super owned. But I'll probably like somebody better. I like Aaron Rodgers or something.
Yep.
As far as the Atlanta side goes, I might like Tevin Coleman more this week because Freeman was able to get so much of the workload last week. It's kind of like the Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree situation from last year, where when the pendulum swings one way, it swings back the other way the next game. And I think that so many people are going to be on Freeman after watching him score, 3 times against the Packers. I just like Tevin Coleman more as a GPP play. I'm not going to pay Devontae Freeman's price of $6,700 for this game because there's too much value at running back. So I'd rather have Tevin Coleman for $5,300. And then Mohamed Sanu, fantastic. Love it. That's pretty much all I got here. I like Austin Hooper too. Detroit has awful linebackers. Awful.
Yeah.
They can cover anything. And Austin Hooper has big play upside. So that's what I got in the game. It's all passing. I like both quarterbacks. I like Matt Ryan more.
Yeah, you guys pretty much nailed it all. A couple things I will add to that is I'm big on Stafford this week. When you go over the slate, there's a lot of value of paying down for quarterback this week, kind of opposite to last week, in my opinion. The price on Stafford at 62 is big for me. But Riddick, I absolutely love. We've seen in the first 2 weeks, we've seen Cohen and Montgomery, 2 receiving running backs, have big games when it comes to playing the Falcons. So there's a lot I like in that scenario. Outside of that, Sanu was a guy I had circled, and then both tight ends. Ebron's cheaper, but both tight ends, I think, Hooper was the talk of the town last week after his big game against Chicago. He kind of didn't do anything, something to think about there. So ownership might fade away. One question I have for you, James, you mentioned the Atlanta pass rush, and I agree it's very, very brutal. But Vic Beasley's out, and once he left the game on Sunday, it didn't get as much pressure on Rodgers anymore. Would that change your thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, that would change it. I mean, he led the NFL in sacks last year. So for him to be out is a pretty big blow to that defensive line. So, that changes my mind on it. I like Stafford more with him out.
Okay, just wanted to bring that up on that one. Let's move on to one that could be sneaky interesting. The total is only 40.5. Cleveland Browns at the Indianapolis Colts. Cleveland's a 1-point road favorite. It's 2 horrific teams that we target all the time, but hey, they're playing each other. So what should we do today on bargain bin hunting? James, kick us off. Cleveland at Indianapolis.
Ugh.
Moving on.
Okay, so Indianapolis sucks bad. Cleveland has talent, right? Cleveland has Deshaun Kaiser. Cleveland has Rashard Higgins, who's pretty good. Isaiah Crowell is pretty good. David Njoku is pretty good. Indiana has nothing. So I like the Browns a lot more than I like the Colts. And I actually like Isaiah Crowell a lot. We know that he's going to get the volume. We have him projected for over 16 rushes over at Daily Roto. We know he's going to get the volume. We know that the Colts have nothing to stop anybody on the ground or the air, but on the ground either. And so Isaiah Crowell is not going to be receiving passes. We know that that's Duke Johnson's thing, but he's interesting. I'll talk about it in a second. But Isaiah Crowell at 4,800 against the Colts seems sneaky, probably. Everybody else is going to be on these other cheap running backs, and Isaiah Crowell has a defined running role. And if they get into the red zone, I mean, he might get 2 rushing touchdowns here. Duke Johnson, interestingly, has lined up the 3rd most out of running backs at wide receiver, which is a lot. I mean, lining him up out at wide receiver is a really important thing. That's something that we look at for Le'Veon Bell. It's something that we look at for Tarek Cohen. We talked about it last week. We really like him lining up out there. So I like the same thing for Duke Johnson. The only issue is that Deshaun Kaiser has a cannon for an arm and just wants to throw it deep. So Duke Johnson isn't running the routes that are really going to get targets. But I like the Cleveland Browns side of it, and I know I'm going to burn money on them this weekend because I like Isaiah Crowell and I like Rashard Higgins.
Yes, thank you.
On the Colts, the Browns' rush defense has looked good. It has actually looked good. Their pass defense has been atrocious, but their rush defense has looked good at times. I know that hasn't like gotten results yet, but it's looked good. And Frank Gore is like 40, so I'm not going there. And I mean, Jacoby Brissett is better than Tolzien, but he's not great. So, just give me Isaiah Crowell and Rashard Higgins, and let's just move on.
Yeah.
Bucks, do you have anything else with that?
Yeah, I'm fairly similar. I think much like he said, Crowell could get into the red zone, get a couple touchdowns. I think the same thing with Gore if Brissett can move the ball. I mean, I think he's going to touch the ball 15 times and maybe get 50, 60 yards. But I think if he can get the goal line touches, there's some value there, 4,200. But largely fading this game, I'm glad you mentioned Rashard Higgins. I mean, he seems to have a really good connection there. 11 targets last week, and he's $4,000. I mean, where else are they going to throw? So he's definitely worth a gamble. So, I mean, but that's it. I mean, this game is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, you're going to hear everybody talk about the contrarian angles of, say, Kaiser, Brissett, because they run, blah, blah, blah. Sure, they might do it for you. I'd rather gamble elsewhere. The main guys I'm looking at here is just the passing game. Higgins, we talked about there's a couple of chalk guys you just got to eat each week. Higgins will be one of them. 4K, you just can't pass up that value. And then the other guy, he's going to be chalky as well. But Jack Doyle at 3,600, that is Brissett's guy.
Yeah.
That's where he's going over and over again. If I know it's disgusting, it's the Colts, but at a tight end position, he reminds me of the Ertz play in week 1. Jack Doyle at 36 is very, very live, but he's going to be super chalky. So Doyle and Higgins, he looks really, really good. And he's talented. We saw before with him. It's just you didn't know with Tolzien what the heck was going to happen. But with Brissett, who is much better than Tolzien, that's why I don't like – if you make a bunch of lineups, I wouldn't like rule out the Brissett or Kaiser options, even a T.Y. Hilton, relatively nice. But if you're only making a couple lineups or you're just playing cash, no chance in hell. I'm going with Higgins and Doyle. That's where I'll plant my flag in this game, and that is about it. Moving on, Broncos at Bills, Denver 3-point road favorites, total of 40. Another one of those games. It's the first trip for Denver on the road, so it might be a little different than playing a Mile High, and Buffalo just can't. So, Bucks, where are you looking in this mess of a game?
Yeah, I mean, have we talked about a game that we're all about yet?
Like 2 or 3 that are worth just really attacking. That's why I said earlier, I might just pick a couple games, play the heck out of them, and call it good.
I mean, I'm avoiding this game for the most part, with the exception of a few guys potentially. I mean, you have McCoy, right? And he's 7,000. And you know he's going to get the rock 25 times. But he looks mediocre, I guess. But he's going to catch 5 or 6 balls. But not a great spot, but he could get a ton of volume here. The only other guy I'm going to mention is Clay. I think he has a chance, and for $3,400, I think he can go 5 for 50 pretty easily. The other option I have that if I'm trying to save up on defense because Denver's going on the road, I'm looking at the Bills D just as a flyer option. I think they have a chance there. I think their D as a whole has underperformed. I think their entire team has underperformed overall. But, again, not a game I'm targeting at all. And right now, again, I only play 3 lineups a week. I don't have anybody in this game in any lineup.
Yeah, I'm going to give my 2 cents real quick. So it's looking at 2 cents. This is a game to just stay away from with me. I love the Bills angle you just mentioned there at the defense because people are going to look at this Denver offense and think it's just phenomenal. And they played really well, don't get me wrong. But those are at home. That's a whole different environment, especially early in the season. Buffalo does bring some defense. If I were to use anybody in this game, I would look at a guy like Emmanuel Sanders because if it's a short game, short passes, not going up and down the field a ton, he's still going to get his targets. So in the PPR formats, I think he's still viable at 5,800, one of the kind of middle-priced guys. Outside of that, nothing really tickles my fancy. What do you got, James?
So I'm kind of apart from you guys here. I think the Buffalo Bills defense is going to be one of the worst in the league by the end of the year. I think that they don't have any talent in the secondary. I think their linebacker core is like mediocre. They have 2 good defensive linemen, but that's about it. I might be wrong on that, and that's okay. I don't mind. But with Darby getting injured at the beginning of the year, they don't have anything on defense in the secondary. And Simeon has looked good, like really, really good. And I still think that he's overperforming. I'm still not buying into that yet, but he's looked great. And he's looked great with Emmanuel Sanders, and he's been able to hit all of those targets. He's made good decisions. I have interest in Simeon, Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. I have interest in C.J. Anderson with how heavily he was used this last week. And then I'll tell you this, man. Nobody is going to take LaShawn McCoy after what they held Ezekiel Elliott to.
Right?
Nobody. But he's $7K. And he's the only thing on that. I think you got to take a shot at LaShawn McCoy and GPP.
How many touches do you guys have, Matt?
We have him projected for 25.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, 25.
Well, and that's a good point with McCoy, and I'll let you keep going, is as bad as their offense is, he is their offense. So he's going to get his touches regardless of what happens, and he's talented enough to break a few plays for you. So there is viability there. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, LaShawn McCoy, you can argue that he's a top 3 running back talent in the league. He's incredible.
Yep.
And the Broncos linebackers really aren't anything special. Brandon Marshall is good, but he's going to play middle linebacker, and his responsibility is really going to be to spy Tyrod Taylor, not worry about LaShawn McCoy on the outside. So at $7K, you're telling me LaShawn McCoy is going to touch the ball between 23 and 27 times and just get rode no matter what they're doing? I have interest in LaShawn McCoy in tournaments. That price is too cheap. And after Ezekiel Elliott only got, 8 yards last week, nobody is going to touch him. Not a single person will touch him. So I have interest in tournaments, but that's it. It's really just LaShawn McCoy and the Broncos passing game for me.
Yep. We move on to a game that might get people going a little more, but at the same time, maybe not. You got Houston at the New England Patriots. New England minus 13-point home favorites. Over under 44. Patriots have a nice implied team total, if you believe in that stuff, at 28.5. Bucks, where are you going in this one?
Yeah, I think this one's an interesting one for me. It's hard to look at this game, look at any game and not put some faith in Brady. But I think with his price tag of 7,700 against fairly good defense, I think there are better plays on the slate. So I'm avoiding Brady. I think he puts up over 260 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is solid. But I think from a value perspective, there's better options out there. I'm not touching the running backs. You guys can handle that. I mean, there's a couple guys that have potential there, but I do like Hogan. And if Amendola comes back this week, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at anything recently, but I think Amendola at 5,400 is a really shifty guy that Brady loves to throw to. So I'd be all in on that. Hopkins is a guy I love as well. Obviously, Houston should be playing from behind. He's going to get 10-plus targets again, and he's $6,200. So ton of value and upside there. I have him at 7 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown, which obviously sounds awesome. And then one guy that, and I think it's just running quarterbacks that, get my juices flowing a little bit, but Watson at $4,700, I think has some upside, especially with Hopkins' potential there. So we'll see.
You, James?
I already know that I'm going to have all my head-to-heads out there. I'm going to have them going. I'm going to look after DeAndre Hopkins scores a touchdown when I don't have him on my cash games. I'm going to be so mad about it.
He's getting 12 targets a game.
Dude, I know.
Yeah, Watson's that rookie quarterback that just focuses on one guy and he goes there over and over again.
I know, I get it, but I also don't think
has Hopkins scored a touchdown yet?
Has who?
Hopkins.
Yeah.
No,
he scored one. He scored one.
He?
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah,
not bad.
He should have like 6 already.
I know. Okay, so we have him projected for 35% of the market share of targets. That's conservative.
Where is he going? Where are they going?
I know, but like you can't just input 60% of targets on a play. Like you have to consider that there's other options. We have him projected well. He projects as a good value. I understand the play. I get it.
That's what he thinks about Hopkins this week.
I think about that. I just don't want to take anybody on this Houston offense against a Bill Belichick defense that's incredible at shutting down rookie quarterbacks. I do believe that the coaching is too good for the Patriots to make those mistakes. It is super ultra obvious where the ball is going. It's super ultra obvious what the game plan will be. It's just going to be get it to DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that the coaching staff is too good for the Patriots to really let that happen. So I won't have any of that. On the other side, for New England, Tom Brady, you nailed it on the head. Like, he's just too expensive. He projects super well. He's going to score really well because he's Tom Brady and he's playing at home. But it's just not a very good value. We don't have a single Patriots player other than Tom Brady projected as a positive value. To put into perspective how we think this game goes, the only other player that I really want exposure to is Brandon Cooks, coming off of a dud last week against the Saints. I don't think that the Houston corners are fast enough to keep up with him, and I think that he's going to get a couple bombs shot to him, and I think that they can connect. Other than that, Danny Amendola was practicing this week, so I can see that play. I'm fine with that, but it's really just Brandon Cooks, and if I pay up at quarterback, I'll take Tom Brady in cash. I'm not touching anything else in this game.
Yeah, this is a tough one because this is really, really tough because you could see New England running away with it. And if they do, then who knows who they put out there with their slew of people. But I still am a guy that'll do it weekly, at least in GPPs. As long as his price tag is at least this area or below, I am a James White guy just because he's a target monster. It's what he does. He gets his plays, and he tore it up last week. And I know that's going to make him popular, but he also got the price increase. He is worth the play in GPPs for me. And then if Amendola doesn't go, I go Hogan. If Amendola does go, I'll look at Amendola. He just worries the snot out of me because he always gets hurt, even when he says he's healthy. So he could do that. He could be this week's Jordy Nelson for you, and just kill you. But the best play for me in this game as a whole, and I know you don't agree, James, but I agree with you, Bucks, is Hopkins, because no matter what, they're going to feed him, and I'll take that all day long as when they're playing from behind. So that's the only place I'm going. Next up, we go to –
I absolutely understand the play. Like, I get it, and I know why he's popular, and I get it. There's the volume. So I can't argue it. I can't ever tell anybody don't play him. It worries me too much from a football background. I played for 10 years. They're going to triple cover him. There's nowhere else that Deshaun Watson will want to go. So I just worry about it, but I understand the play.
Okay. Maybe we'll have to look into who the other options are because I can't even name them all, even when I looked at the DraftKings list. I couldn't tell you who the heck they are. We got the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Miami 6-point road favorites. Total is 41.5. From a DraftKings perspective, there's only a couple options here, and they wear teal. But, James, kick us off with the Dolphins-Jets.
This is Chalk City with Jay, and I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat all the Jay chalk.
Yes, you have to.
I usually try to be a little bit chalk-averse. Nope, don't care. Not with this. Jets don't have any talent on defense. Jay gets fed constantly. 80% market share of the rush, 84% market share of the rushing touchdowns, still gets targets. Jay, plain point blank. And then Jarvis Landry got 15 targets last week.
Yeah.
15 targets. That is your other play other than Hopkins. Right there.
Play both of them.
Yep.
And you can do that, but like
30 targets and 2 guys.
You guys might have to make a little side bet on the show or something about this one.
I might do that. Jarvis Landry, 15 targets, dude. And he only got like 65 yards.
I know, right?
On 10 catches, but that's 18 points if he finds the end zone. He crushes.
Well, I remember. So I was at a work conference this week, and I remember looking at the stat line real quick, and he had like 5 catches for like 11 yards. I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, dude. On the Jets side, you can play Jermaine Kearse with some confidence at this point. We know that he's kind of Josh McCown's guy. So I don't mind Jermaine Kearse. I actually don't mind Josh McCown at 4,500. That price is just there's so many more players that are more expensive than him, and he is going to throw the ball quite a bit. We have him projected for 35 passes. So for 4,500, if he finds Jermaine Kearse twice, if he finds Matt Forte, if he finds Will Powell, whatever. He'll pay out easy. He's just another one of those super cheap quarterback flyers you can have. But for me, it's all about Jay Ajayi and Jarvis Landry.
What do you got, Bucks?
Yeah, I mean, about the same. I think when I think of this game, I just shake my head because I'm thinking Cutler, I'm thinking the Jets, I'm thinking just a giant, shit fest. But I'll say surprisingly, last week, Cutler did not throw a pick. So he actually looked decent. But and I like anyone against the Jets, so he's obviously potentially in play. But I don't think he needs to throw it more than 25 times, 26, 27 times this game. So for 6,100, he's in play. But like he said, Jay Ajayi, 7,700, he's going to be 4,000,000% owned. But, sometimes it's fun to join that party, and I think this is one of those weeks that I'm going to be right in the middle. So I think he rushes, and I'm being dead serious, I think he rushes 25 times for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so I'm all in on him. I think if I look on the other side of the ball, so one question I have for you guys, if you are getting stomped, I'm talking about the Jets, if you're getting stomped, how do you not throw it to your pass catching back? I
don't understand at all.
I love Powell almost weekly just because he should catch 5 balls a game, and they just avoided him last week.
It's because they're the Jets.
Oh, man, it's brutal. So Jets suck. I mean, they're awful. But I really like Parker this game, but it's hard to avoid the targets at 6,800 with Landry. So, but Parker at 6,300, both of those guys are in play. I could definitely see somebody stacking everybody in this game and having a hell of a time. So we'll see.
I'm just going to preface something here. As a Dolphins fan, I agree with everything you said, but I've seen this story too many times, and I'm going to end up watching the game and they'll win 10-7, and I'm going to want to break something. But yes, Ajayi is all the chalk. You can pick the color that your kids have, eat it all. Landry, I love. You said the targets are there. I get it. But Parker is – Colors has said it over and over again. Parker is his guy, and he loves him. And one thing we are leaving out, he only had 4 catches for 85, which is still great, but he did have 9 targets. So he did get targeted a ton in that game. And he's your more big play guy. So in GPPs, I could see pivoting to Parker off of Landry to be a little different in the Dolphins' love. I could totally get behind that.
Parker is going to be luckier than Landry this week, dude.
You think so? Really?
People are touting up Parker this week. Yeah, because of the reason that you just said, where it's Jay Cutler's guy, and he's like,
Did Landry injure himself?
No.
Does he have a knee?
They're both questionable.
Does Landry have a knee issue or something?
He had a knee issue last week too, and then he got 15 targets.
Well.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Just keep going. I just want to let you know that I think Parker's going to be chalkier. I think Parker's going to be more popular.
That's heartbreaking. But yeah, they're both in play. Whoever you have the money for, pay for them. I like them both. And I 1,000% agree with the curse call. I had him in a lot of lineups last week as like my flex, and he continues to get his plays. Like, I'm not kidding. It's nuts that he's basically the only target that McCown goes to. And if you want to be really, really off the wall, because not many are going to own him, but I haven't listened to things, so maybe he's just going to be like Parker. But Austin Seferian-Jenkins is coming off his suspension at $3,000, is a cheaper tight end option for you, as the Dolphins' center of the field is missing a big linebacker, so they're going to be having to move guys around. Something to think about there if you want to take a gamble in that direction.
That's a good call.
New Orleans at Carolina. This is an interesting one because a lot of angles. But Carolina, 6-point home favorite. We know New Orleans really struggles the last 2 weeks stopping the pass. Brady on the road. Narrative has been legit. The over-under is 47.5. James, hit us with some knowledge on this game.
So this is one that I have a lot of interest in. I want to stack Carolina in this game. And the main reason for it being, not only is the Saints defense putrid, like we know that, and it's carried over for the last 2 years. They're just awful. They can't defend passes. But with Greg Olsen going down, we get Devin Funchess in a more prominent role, and that kid can play. Being a Carolina Panthers fan, I watch a lot of Carolina Panthers, and he's been playing in the slot a lot. He's been developing. He didn't look great last year, but he's a big presence in the red zone. And now Cam Newton has these two huge wide receivers with Devin Funchess and Kevin Benjamin. That red zone presence is huge. And then Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield, who I think can have a monster game this week. The last 4 times that these two teams have met, neither team has scored less than 20 points. That's a lot of fantasy points to be had for both teams. I think that continues going. I think that Cam Newton has had some rust that he's had to get off of his shoulder after surgery. I think that he's going to get back into it sooner rather than later, and what better time than against the Saints? So I have interest in this entire game. I like both sides of it. I think that you can game stack it. I think that this is actually a slightly better spot than Detroit-Atlanta, considering Detroit might not put up the points that everybody thinks they will.
We're on a lot of the same page there. Bucks, what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is just an interesting game for me because I don't know what it is about this game this week because I know the history behind it, but it just feels like a trap game. Like, I don't know, for some reason, like, it just scares me. Like, I think like you said, James, I look at the history, I see all the points being scored, and for some reason, it's just like, I don't know, giving me some heebie-jeebies or something. But with that being said, I do think there are a lot of good plays here. I think I really like the way that Jonathan Stewart's been running. I think Caffrey obviously caps that, but I mean, if Jonathan Stewart can get 16 touches this game, he's been running super hard, and I think he can break off a couple big runs. So I think he is a high upside play at $4,700. Yeah, $4,700. The other guy that kind of intrigues me this week, and maybe just narrative street potentially, but $4,100 for Ted Ginn Jr. I think he can potentially get behind that defense. I think he's averaging 6 targets a game, and so it's only going to take one of those to really break one off and provide a ton of value at $4,100. But it would not be a surprise to me if he did it this week. So I think there's a couple guys that I like. I do like McCaffrey, but $6,100. I don't know. I'm not sure I've bought into that hype yet. I think I was more hyped week 1 than I am right now for McCaffrey. So, but I do like Jonathan Stewart this week at $4,700. I think there's a ton of value there. And I think he is going to be low owned.
Yeah. Before I get into mine, James, what do you guys have for kind of the distribution between McCaffrey and Stewart?
We have 49% of the market share of rush for Stewart, 34 for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that's kind of how it's been going, and I agree. This game, just everyone's going to flock to the 47 total because there's not many high totals as we've seen so far. Bills, like Cam's not right. The offense hasn't flowed. We know New Orleans is horrible. I just can't put my backings there. I'd rather go to some of these other games we talked about or are going to talk about. It's almost like you have to go all in, or you just kind of take a Stewart and watch. I like the Ginn narrative for the fact if you want to play the whole revenge game, well, there you go. Those narratives do exist. But the kind of value I find in this game, besides Jonathan Stewart and maybe Ginn or Funchess, like you mentioned, with Greg Olsen out, you can get Ed Dixon at $2,700. And we know that Cam does like his tight end. He used Olsen a ton. And I could see Ed Dixon, he was a very athletic tight end. I know he's older now, so he's not as athletic as he was before. But a guy like Dixon at 27 could be an interesting play in your GPPs.
Yeah, I think for Dixon, it all depends on the first couple passes his way. Because if he drops them like he has in the past, Cam is not going to go back there. So
yeah,
true.
My issue with Ed Dixon is that he's just not the same kind of catcher as Greg Olsen. Devin Funchess is a much better comparison for Greg Olsen. I just think that the only reason I want to stack this, I have two reasons. The main reason is that I think it's going to be concentrated. It's the same thing as when you take the Broncos. You know that it's going to be Simeon, Sanders, and Demaryius Thomas. And I think in this game, it's going to be Newton, Funchess, and Benjamin, with Christian McCaffrey getting plenty of snaps. The other reason is the prices. You can stack the entire team. If you go Cam Newton, Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin, you're spending less than $20,000. I don't really like Christian McCaffrey's price either, and I admit that, but the prices here just let you get a full stack. You can stack this entire game and still have room for like one or two other good players. So I just think that it makes more sense than trying to stack the Atlanta-Detroit game where the prices are getting a little bit higher. And you can get the number one wide receiver on both teams for a reasonable price. And that's my big draw to it, is prices.
Yep.
That makes a ton of sense. That's very, very valid. And it's like I said, I don't completely hate it. I just had a weird feeling about it. And I feel if you're going to do it, you need to almost go all in, like you're saying. And I totally understand the idea behind it. That's a good point there. Giants at Eagles, little NFC East action. Eagles are 6-point home favorites, over under 43. This is intriguing. This game's very intriguing to me, actually. James, do you thought on this one?
The Eagles should be bigger home favorites than 6 points.
Yep.
I will start with that. The Eagles defense is like really, really good. It's probably top 3 in the NFL right now. Their defensive front seven is fantastic. Their cornerbacks are good. Their safeties are good. They get a lot of pressure. They get a lot of turnovers. And then we get to have them at home against the corpse of Eli Manning and the shattered soul of Odell Beckham Jr. with a broken ankle. And I don't know why this is only a 6-point spread. I can see the Eagles winning by 21 points.
Because it's the NFC East and it's always a effing shit show.
Like, I get it, but why should we assume that the Eagles aren't just going to completely blow the Giants out of the water if the Giants haven't been able to hold with a team yet?
I agree. Yeah.
The Eagles do have one play this week by a lot. It's like not close for me.
Yeah.
And then I really like Zach Ertz. The Giants have the slowest linebacker core in the league. Zach Ertz is still getting all the targets and all the work. Alshon Jeffrey showed up last week. He's great. Nelson Aguilar has been alive. He's great. I don't want to touch any of the running backs, but I love the passing game for the Eagles. And Carson Wentz is still only $5,900 because who needs a price tag when you throw all the time?
Yeah.
So I love Carson Wentz this week. He is probably my favorite play in cash games over Matthew Stafford because I know he's going to throw it 40 times. Yeah. On the Giants side, if you believe that Odell Beckham Jr. is healthy, if you believe that he is fully healthy, then I can see you taking Odell Beckham Jr. for 8,600.
If you take Odell Beckham Jr. 8,600 this week, you're an idiot.
I agree. I'm not going
head-to-head.
I'm not going there. But there will be people that do, because that he'll there's going to be a video on Twitter of him in practice, backup linebacker, and he's going to be like, oh, he's so healthy. He's doing 360 dunks like Steph Curry. And it's not going to matter in the game. So I don't want any Giants. I kind of like Shane Vereen because he has been very good out of the backfield. And the Eagles do have kind of that weakness. Otherwise, just give me Carson Wentz and the Eagles defense, and I'm good with that.
I like it. Bucks, what do you got on this one?
No, not much. I despise both of these teams. The Giants look terrible all around. O-line looks terrible. Defensive line looks terrible. So I agree with you. I think the big play here is the Eagles defense. And I'm never going to admit to get behind an Eagles quarterback, but you're right. I mean, he looks good. The one guy that intrigues me just from looking at some of the play-by-play and how the games have flowed and some of the targets, I could see Torrey Smith having a good game this week. I think there's potential there for him, and I just have seen him show some life, and I think he's comfortable there. But I think you're right. Ertz is going to be just a stud. Like you said, Giants linebackers just got awful. So, but again, F both of these teams.
Yeah, the Torrey Smith call is interesting, especially for a GPP player, and Cash probably not. But he did have 8 targets last week, so Wentz, like you said, is throwing it everywhere. It's so to get a piece of the action and be different. I get it. Wentz, like you said, James, like him and Stafford are my two of my top guys easily. I absolutely love Wentz this week, and that price tag is ridiculous. And if DraftKings wants to play this game like they do with certain baseball players and never adjust their price till it's too late, I will play them every single week. But outside of that, I like the Vereen call because if they are behind, as we are thinking they will be, he is a check down king. And when Eli can't have any time to throw, Vereen will get his touches. But other than that, it's Zach Ertz all day long for me. I will pay $5K for him over and over again. And the defense, the fact that the Eagles defense is $100 cheaper than the Giants is laughable. So maybe I'll be wrong next time we record, but Eagles at $3K is an absolute steal in my opinion. So they will be over a lot of my lineups. I will be all in on that kind of good stuff. Let's move to our final 1 Eastern game. We got 2 more still. It's a big morning slate. Steelers at Bears. Pittsburgh 7.5 point road favorites, over under 44 points. Bucks kick us off in this one.
Yeah, I like this game mainly because I like Martavius Bryant. And he looked way better last week. Timing looked a lot better with Ben. And Ben at 6,200 is
sneaky.
I don't know. I guess he's on the road, so I don't know if that's in their algorithm, but 6,200 I think is really, really cheap for him. I mean, everybody he has there can catch the ball. Le'Veon Bell is going to catch the ball a ton. And Le'Veon Bell is disappointed, and hopefully his ownership's down a little bit, but 8,800 this week, and I think he gets 25 touches, 5 catches. So, I mean, if he touches it 25 times this week, he's going to score.
Yep.
I'm telling you that this week he's going to score. Antonio Brown, I mean, I'm going to play him everywhere this week, I think. He's been targeted 22 times in 2 games, and he's underperformed. I mean, it's crazy. He's had 2 good games, and he's underperformed. So I'll take him for 9K. Bryant at 5,600, I love again. I'm going to continue to play him probably every single week. He's like the and Crabtree's price obviously is growing steadily, but Crabtree was like this last year. Crabtree was like 5,500, 5,600 every single week, and I was all over it. So I love Bryant again at 5,600. He's a TD machine, and he's starting to click with Ben. So I'll stack this game, I think, a little bit. I'm not a fan of him, but Kendall Wright is going to get 10 targets again. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this guy week 1, and I don't think he's a good football player. Mm-hmm. And I think Kevin White's a better football player, but Kevin White is not playing. So I think he's going to get 10 targets. But the big play for me, and this is no surprise to this group, is going to be Tariq Cohen.
Yes, sir.
I think for them to keep up at all, he's going to have to touch the ball a shit ton. And I mean, $5,600 for a guy that's going to catch the ball, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times easy. His usage is going to be just insane. So he just needs to break it off one time, and he's going to be a ridiculous value this week. So I love him this week. Those guys that's their only option, and he's going to be used all over the place. So he'll get his. I'm not concerned about it. Don't like either of these defenses really, but I do like a lot of pieces of this game, obviously.
Yep, that works for me. James, what do you got?
Mike Glennon sucks.
Yes.
He's bad, man. Like, really bad. The Buccaneers' defense is good, but they're not that good. You know?
No, they're not.
Mike Glennon made them look like the Broncos' no-fly zone. And Pittsburgh, I'm concerned that James Harrison has only played 4 snaps so far through 2 games. I am concerned with that because he is the heart of that defense, and without him, it's really hard for me to see them really doing too much. So I'm not saying that I like the Pittsburgh defense, but I'm not saying that I like Mike Glennon either. So I might. I'm with you on Tariq Cohen. I think that he's the only playmaker they have. We have him projected for 20% of the market share of targets over at Daily Roto. So not quite paying off value. 5,600 is maybe a little bit larger of a price hike than he should have gotten off of last week, considering his ownership and considering his performance. But yeah, he's a really, really good playmaker. And they're going to need him against this Pittsburgh team. Yeah. I'm with you. I do kind of think that the Ben Roethlisberger home road splits are significant. I do think that they are real. But 6,200 is too cheap. He's a more talented quarterback than that. We have him projected for 35 passing plays, and that's more than enough for him to get to Antonio Brown 12 or 13 times. And that's really what he do.
And how is he the most expensive quarterback week 1, and now he's $6,200?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably not as large of a difference between the Chicago Bears defense and the Cleveland Browns defense at all.
No, the Bears are worse.
Yeah, I was saying the Browns defense is better.
So,
and it's a division game.
I agree with you. I think Ben Roethlisberger's too cheap. I think that Le'Veon Bell is starting to come back into form. He was probably just out of shape in the first game back since he wasn't in training camp. He was applying at Dairy Queen or whatever the hell he was doing. So I think that he's back, and I think that Antonio Brown is a great play this week too, because I don't think that people will take him. People really, I believe in Ben Roethlisberger's home road splits, but some people take it too far, and like a lot of people take it too far. And people think that you can't play Antonio Brown on the road because Ben Roethlisberger won't do anything, but that's just plain not true. Antonio Brown's the best wide receiver in football. So
if Antonio Brown's under $9,000, he's an auto play for me.
Yeah, he's
matchup proof.
Yeah, he's too cheap. And the narrative that people have right now is that the Bears use a bracket system to shut down wide receiver ones. I don't.
Good. I'm gonna stack them with Bryant, and I'll get it one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And they're both. And then Le'Veon Bell, I think will be super, super popular this week at 8,800. But I don't mind him in cash. I think that he's super safe.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it. Everything you guys said, I'm completely behind. The biggest thing I want people to take away from this, if they take anything, the fact that Ben's $6,200 is just, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. He's in play. Lev Bell, I agree with you, Bucks. I think this is a week where he breaks out because it's not only the people around Pittsburgh. Bell has to be finding out that everyone's saying, "Oh, is he okay? Is he not okay?" These guys are competitive. Ben wants his guys happy. They're going to feed Bell this week. His workload definitely went up last week. This is a phenomenal matchup. You guys hit on the rest of the Pittsburgh guys. I just want to echo, Cohen is a great play. And if we find out that Howard doesn't even suit up on Sunday, Cohen is basically a must play.
Well, that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, because right now, Howard's still questionable. He might play, might not. If he's 100% out, Cohen is 100% in play. Like, there's, to me, no questioning that one at all.
Yeah.
Because Pittsburgh's defense it's good, but it's not that great. And the fact it's $400 more than the Eagles, I'll pay for the Eagles every time over that.
Well, the thing that Pittsburgh's defense is vulnerable to are those shifty little slot receivers and the quick running backs that can catch it in the flat and make something happen.
Yeah. Very, very true. Mr. Tariq Cohen, come on down.
Yeah.
Let's head to the last morning game or early afternoon game. Tampa Bay at Minnesota, no total, no spread. We're waiting to find out about one Sam Bradford. Bucks, take us away on this one because this one just has all kinds of weirdness in it.
Yeah, I think there's some good pieces of this game, especially in the receiver position. I think Evans is always in play, but I think he can get shut down. And I think there's a potential for that to happen. Diggs and Thielen obviously are going to get their share of targets. But I do like Deshaun Jackson this week. I think with a lot of the focus that's going to be on Evans, I think D-Jax, much like some of the other guys that we've talked about tonight, I think D-Jax can get behind that secondary with some really big play potential. And I mean, for $4,600, he has 100-yard and a touchdown type upside this week, I think. And as a former Redskin, I've seen plenty of what I think he's going to do this week. So
cool.
That's all I got in this game.
What about you, James?
I agree. Mike Evans should get shut down here. And the reason for that being that Mike Evans, his weak spot has always been physical corners. He's a bully. He's a bully wide receiver. You can use that term with Des Bryant as well. If they go up against a cornerback that is going to be physical and is going to press them and is going to push them off the line, Mike Evans is not very good. He's way better when he gets clean release. Xavier Rhodes is good and big.
Yes.
And good and big is good against Mike Evans. So I don't like Mike Evans. I like Deshaun Jackson quite a bit more. I like Cameron Brate, I suppose. But really, I'm not going anywhere for Tampa Bay. Minnesota is – I tested their defense last week. I played Pittsburgh in a lot of stacks, and it didn't work out well, besides Martavis. Yeah. So Minnesota's the real deal, and playing at home especially, I think that they have another chance to be one of the top-scoring defenses on the week. We know that Jameis Winston gets frustrated. We know that he will throw interceptions when he tries to force things. So I like the Minnesota defense. On the other side, we are obviously waiting for Sam Bradford news. If Sam Bradford plays, neat. I don't really have any interest in anybody in this game besides probably Stephon Diggs, because he's really good at football. So
yes,
that's pretty much what I got.
Maryland.
If you guys wanted some info on this game, we do have them projected Tampa Bay for 62 plays and Minnesota for 59. If that gives you any kind of indication of who will be up and down, Tampa Bay slightly more run plays than Minnesota's 39%. Tampa Bay's at 45. So that's what we have projected off historical values.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think the call on the Vikings defense could be sneaky nice because they are a whole different ball club at home in that stadium. Completely different animal, and you can rattle Jameis. So I do like the Vikings at 3,300. Djax is a very interesting play. If the only other thing I'm looking at, and you just hit it, if Bradford plays, Diggs is definitely a play for me. I could look at Thielen if you want to save a few bucks because he's going to get his too. He's going to go to both areas, but it'd pretty much be Stephon Diggs for me. Otherwise, I'll probably go elsewhere in this game, but we shall see as time will tell on Bradford's situation. Let's head to the afternoon. Seahawks at Titans. Tennessee's minus 2.5-point favorites at home. 42.5 over under. James, what do you have here?
Let's see. We have Tennessee projected for 48% run plays and 52% pass plays, which is about right. The big news, obviously, here is that DeMarco Murray is not practicing right now with that hamstring ailment. This is going to be another place where it's just going to be gross chalk on Derrick Henry if he is the main running back. It will be chalk that I avoid, though, because Seattle's defensive line is gross. It's really good. And I know that the Tennessee offensive line is good, and I know that Carlos Hyde had a really good game last week. But Derrick Henry isn't quite Carlos Hyde, I don't think. I think Carlos Hyde is really good. So if he's out and Derrick Henry at 5,300 is going to get all of the rushing, it's really hard to pass. Apart from that, I don't really have any interest on the Tennessee side. Marcus Mariota has looked okay, but not great. Seattle's pass defense is still incredible. On the other side, I can't touch this offense, guys. I can't do it. That O-line is brutal. I mean, like, they don't even try to block some of these plays.
Yeah,
and
they're bad.
they're trying to hold in Jimmy Graham to help block. So Luke Wilson has been getting running, like, passing routes. This offense is bad right now. It's really bad. So I don't have any interest in the Seattle offense. I don't have any interest in the Tennessee defense. The only thing that I might consider is Derrick Henry if DeMarco Murray is out. Otherwise, nothing for me.
What about you, Bucks?
I'm in the same kind of boat. I think the one guy, a couple things I'll mention. I think Rashard Matthews is a talented receiver at $4,200, and I think they're gonna have to throw it somewhere. So I think he has some upside at $4,200. So they're gonna move him around, and so he has options there. My Derrick Henry decision would all be based on ownership. If I think that they're going to look at Seattle and his ownership will be suppressed, then I would play Derrick Henry. But if I believe what you're saying, that his ownership is going to be crazy high, even playing the Seahawks, then yes, I'm absolutely going to avoid. But I think he's going to touch it 20 plus times. It's almost a guarantee. He's a talented dude. But again, if it's all comes down to ownership for me. So if I get to Saturday night, Sunday morning, and his ownership is likely going to be 20%, then I'm going to fade him. I have to.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense because he is definitely in play if it fits correctly there. If you want to get weird, you could look at Chris Carson as he's taken over the role there, but I just don't trust the way they're doing their back. I guess I need to see more is what I'm saying. Other than that, this game makes me sick. Maybe Seattle shows up and makes it happen. I think this is one of those where I'll take my business elsewhere outside of I do like that Henry call if everything points in the right direction. Bengals at Packers. Packers 9-point home favorites, 44.5 total. Packers have a projected total of about 27. This could be interesting. Bucks, are we back on Aaron Rodgers?
No, I mean, he's good, but I mean, he's really good. But this week there are so many options cheaper that are so in such good spots. I mean, and so, yeah, I mean, if you're going to play like James does, 20 lineups, I would definitely throw in a few Rodgers stacks. But he threw a ton against the Falcons and put up 23 points. So disappointing. I think there's much better options. Dalton has been awful, but he's $5,100. I mean, good Lord. He's cheaper than like the Patriots backup. He's cheaper than Garoppolo or something, probably. But I think like James mentioned this earlier, so I'll let him get to AJ Green. I'm not even going to touch AJ Green. But I think with Jordy and Cobb questionable, depending on their situation late in the week, Devontae Adams is obviously a massive play, massive chalk too. But he's already getting a ton of targets, and if one of those guys is out, he's going to get even more targets. But I think the one guy that really interests me this week, and a lot of it's because of price, is Bennett. I think he's looked good, meshing well. I think vulnerable. I know that like you look at the DK stats and they says like they're number one against tight end, but I think they're vulnerable up the middle. So I like Bennett this week a lot. And then Ty Montgomery, I do really like, but $6,900 when I can get LaShawn McCoy for $7. I mean, it's a major jump like from 1 week to the next with him. And I don't understand it. So he had a great game, but I'm probably going to avoid because everybody are going to be on him still. So what do you got?
What about you, James?
Fun fact about the DraftKings pricing algorithm, it takes ownership into account, not just performance. So if somebody is super, super chalky and then does super, super well, the price jumps significantly farther than if they just did well and they weren't owned, or if they were super owned and didn't do well. It takes both into account.
Does it do the same thing for the opposite?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Then why are there still guys that are – who did we mention before this? It's like 6,000 or 5,600 and
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that was one. I guess quarterbacks always seem to be weird, like the Ben Roethlisberger thing. Like
yeah. I don't claim to know everything about it. I'm not a DraftKings algorithm master. But I do that if it's super chalky and does super well, they get a huge price bump because of the algorithm.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's Ty Montgomery. I agree with you. I think people are going to go back to Ty Montgomery this week, which gives me even more reason to take LaShawn McCoy for $100 more on like 2% ownership, like that. Yeah. But yeah,
dude,
this game
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. 2% LaShawn McCoy at 7,000.
That's like Jordan Spieth at 3%. Love
it. Yeah, exactly. Aaron Rodgers is incredible. He's probably the second best quarterback in football right now. And I will always have exposure to him. I think that it's important to pretty much, if you're making multiple lineups, if you're making like 10, 20 lineups, I think that you should have exposure to the best players in the game, at least a little bit. So
you got to try to catch him on that week. He has 45 points.
It's important to do that. So I like Aaron Rodgers a lot. We have him projected to throw 39 times. The Packers throw more than almost any other team in the NFL. So I like Aaron Rodgers, especially at home. You mentioned that Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb are both questionable. I know that Jordy Nelson has already returned to practice, so I don't worry too much more about him. Randall Cobb is different. He did have that shoulder issue. He's older, so I would worry more a little bit about Randall Cobb. If he misses time, then it's pretty easy for me to see Geronimo Allison just step right into his role.
Oh, man.
And Geronimo Allison will be a great value at that point.
He's good.
He is
$3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like pretty good, actually. I think he won somebody in the Million Maker last year.
He was just a touchdown machine.
Yeah. Andy Dalton is behind the worst O-line in the NFL right now. And it's not even close. Like, I have to go to Pro Football Focus after this and check their grades, but
it's got to be them in Seattle.
And the Giants.
Yeah, no. I think they're literally worse than both Seattle and the Giants. Like, if you go over to Pro Football Focus, I'm pretty sure they are worse. And we saw what the Packers were able to do to Russell Wilson week 1, and Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. Yeah. So I don't have any interest in Cincinnati here. I don't know that they score a touchdown this game either. even though this defense isn't good. I don't know, man. If Russell Wilson couldn't put up like good numbers, why would Andy Dalton? And that leads me to AJ Green, who is going to be the chalky superstar wide receiver of the week. And why on earth would you take him in cash games? I don't care that he's 8,100. I don't care that he's getting 10 targets. If Andy Dalton only has 1.75 seconds to throw the ball, you really think that he's going to be able to get it to AJ Green at all? I don't. I would much rather take Antonio Brown for 900 more. I'd much rather take Keenan Allen, who we'll get to later. I'd rather take Devontae Parker. I'm not taking AJ Green. I don't have any faith in this Bengals offense right now. I don't have any faith in Andy Dalton or the O-line. But I do think that the Packers are an okay play in GPPs for the first half of this game where it's competitive.
Well, you guys nailed it all, so I'm not even going to go on to this one. Yes, it's Green Bay. Play your chalk AJ if you want. Other than that, we move on to the last afternoon game. Chiefs at the Chargers. Chiefs 3-point road favorites in this game, and the total's 47.5. We got some action on this one. James, what do you got?
Well, first off, I think the total's too high. Kansas City has looked explosive, if that's the word that you want to use, but they could also look fluky, if that's the word that you want to use. Like, it can go either way. Tyreek Hill, we know, has made a living on big plays. Kareem Hunt only touched the ball 13 times last week.
Exactly.
But everybody's still all over him because he had a 52-yard touchdown run. So I don't think this offense is as good as it has looked. I think that it's overperformed. I think Alex Smith has overperformed. And I think the Chargers defense is better than people give them credit for.
Yep. So
I think the total's a little bit too high. I do have interest in Kareem Hunt if he's going to touch the ball more than 13 times. That's my only thing. If we see throughout the week that Kareem Hunt, like we hear from the coaches that he's going to get more work, then I'll take a shot at him in GPPs. I won't use him in cash, but the Chargers' run defense is pretty bad. So that's Kansas City side for me. I think that they're boom or bust, and I think that they're probably closer to bust this week. With the Chargers, Melvin Gordon is going to continue to get all of the rushing touches and is going to continue to be like the third wide receiver on this team. And he didn't really get that big of a price hike. He's only $7,600. I think that he's fine, especially playing at home. Phillip Rivers is going to throw the ball 40 times again. He's like a high upside Joe Flacco for me. He's going to throw the ball a lot. We don't know that it's going to be touchdowns, but he's going to throw the ball a lot. And I do think, and I can probably say this with confidence, that we're going to see more Hunter Henry moving forward. Yeah. I think that it was a really big thing for them to get Antonio Gates that receiving touchdown record. I think they got it for him, and now I think that they'll phase in Hunter Henry because Antonio Gates is going to retire at the end of this year. Yep. So I do think that we'll see more Hunter Henry. He's 3,900. He's not exactly cheap, but I do think that Kansas City is weak over the middle without Eric Berry. So Hunter Henry is interesting if we hear some words from coaches that he's getting more reps with the starters. And then we have Keenan Allen, who's just going to continue to eat. He is Antonio Brown-esque when he's healthy. He's the best route runner probably in the NFL when he's healthy, and he's healthy right now. So I don't worry about Eric Berry. He's super aggressive, and he just goes for the interception. Keenan Allen is better than Marcus Peters is, so I'm fine with the Chargers offense. I way prefer the Chargers offense over the Kansas City offense.
What do you got, Bucks?
Yeah, I completely agree for the most part. I mean, everyone is pretty viable in this game, especially on the Chargers side. But I do like Rivers in this matchup. The only thing that concerns me about Rivers is I keep looking back at some of his past performances, like even week 1, 3 touchdowns, and he scored like 22 fantasy points. And it's just like mind-boggling how he looks so good but doesn't score like you'd hope. But with that being said, I mean, Keenan Allen averaging 10 targets a game, is only a matter of time before that dude has like a multi-touchdown game. And I think this could be a good spot to do it. Williams looks great. I mean, when I look at the Kansas City side of it, I mean, holy price ascension, Batman. Good. I mean, Kareem Hunt is $8,000 now. So, no, thank you. I mean, like James mentioned, I mean, both him and Hill are ridiculous playmakers, like insane. But I don't think it's a sustainable every game type deal. And I could be wrong, but for $8,000, we've already mentioned guys like LaShawn McCoy that I would much rather have. And honestly, I'd much rather have guys that are 4,800, 5,000, 5,100 this week. I do like Melvin Gordon again, and I think he potentially could get stuffed a little bit in the run game, but I think he's going to catch 5 or 6 balls again. So I think that's even more of a reason why I like Rivers this week, is because I think Williams is in play. I think Hunter Henry's in play. I think Allen's in play. I think Melvin Gordon catching the ball's in play. And so I really like Rivers this week. And then I like Tyreek Hill again in his playmaking ability. But here's the thing. I mean, last week he got 4 targets or something like that? If Kansas City has any shot in hell to win, he has to get almost double-digit targets because they don't have anywhere else to go. Obviously, their tight end, Kelsey, is insane, and he's probably going to be the number 1 option for a while, and he's going to get 7 to 8 targets again. But from a wide receiver standpoint, they have to get him the ball more often. And so it depends on what the Chargers do on the defensive side of the ball, but love the Chargers this week. Love that stack. I'm not sure I think there's a lot of other options that might have people gravitate towards that, like Falcons game and stuff like that. So I think Phillip, while he may not be a sexy option, I think he has a really big upside, like James said.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Everyone's going to see the Chiefs defense, all that stuff, and will not want to use the Chargers. And Phillip he's never pretty, like you say, he's not sexy, but fantasy-wise, he produces game in and game out for you. $6,400, definitely in play there. I love Melvin Gordon, former Badger, by the way, and I absolutely love Keenan Allen. This guy is just, like you said, you hit it on the head. He's Antonio Brown-esque, and he's $7,200. They're going to throw it and throw it and throw it to him. So those guys are all big in play for me. The Hunt Hill thing, they're GPP guys week in and week out just for the fact that, like you said, they live on the big play. They're not going to do it in volume. So if you want to roll the dice and get different, you go for it. Like a chalky Hunt isn't ideal, so keep that in mind. But Kelsey's your guy for cash or GPP. He's going to get fed the rock over and over and over again. So I could see some Kelsey, but Allen, Gordon, and Rivers are the big guys I'm looking at there. And that's pretty much all I will be targeting in that game. Yeah, that's about it.
I will say that Hunt, I didn't know that he was 8,000. I didn't even look to see that he was 8,000. That's egregious. First off.
Right?
That's crazy.
That is insanity. But at the same time, nobody's going to play him.
Yeah, it's true.
Neither am I.
I don't know. I think that it deserves a look. I'd much rather play Melvin Gordon. I agree that he's a better play. But, I don't know, man. That big play upside, if he turns out to be, the next Priest,
oh, man.
Dude, if he can continue to –
He could be.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree. And it's the whole idea that it's the big play upside. If he's not high owned, it all makes sense. They're going to need to give him – he's going to get his touches. It's just what's he going to do with the touches. And we know the Chargers' defense is not the greatest defense on planet Earth. So you saw Jay Ajayi run wild on him. If they were to be disciplined and give Hunt the ball, he could do just the same. There's no questioning that. It's just a matter of what's Andy Reid going to do. And if you can figure out Andy Reid, send me a slide into my DMs. Let me know. But I can't figure them out. But let's head to Sunday night where we have another potential shootout on deck, and it goes in Buck's backyard. We got the Raiders at the Redskins. The Raiders are a 3-point road favorite, over under 54. The Raiders at the moment have the highest team total at 28.5. Redskins pretty solid themselves. Bucks, these are your boys. I'll let you kick it off.
As a Redskins fan who will be at the game, I am hedging immediately, and I will be having a lot of car, just so I can walk out of that stadium with some sort of good news. Either the Redskins win and I'm elated, or Derek Carr is gonna go bananas and I'll be elated. So Redskins they allow 65% completion rate. They're terrible. I mean, even mediocre quarters pick them apart, let alone a guy like Carr who has so many weapons. And the Washington run D is maybe not on paper, but they look decent, man. They do every year, especially at home. So I like Carr. I like both the receivers. The interesting thing is I just can't peg who. Like on paper, like I look at Rashad Breeland, I look at Josh Norman, and they're good. But they're just like not – they just let so many bad things happen. It's like mind-boggling. And so I have no idea which way it's going to tilt. Like I don't know if Cooper and Norman – I don't know if Norman's going to beat – I don't know if Crabtree's going to beat Breeland. And so the big move for me this week is I love Cook. I think that – well, I know the Redskins suck against the tight end. You saw it with Ertz. You saw it last week. So I'm playing a ton of Cook this week. Yeah, I mean, Everett last week blew us up, the Redskins, that is. So you'd think that a team would recognize that and make adjustments, but the Redskins are not going to do that. So I'm playing all the Cook this week. $7,100. I do like Cooper, but it depends, like I said, where Norman is. But also, I think that's where a lot of the money is going to go, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a little underlooked this week because they haven't looked great. But he's a talented guy, and when they start clicking, they will put up points. Their defense will allow a bunch of points, but I like Cousins a lot this week. He's gonna have a bounce back game, I believe. He's starting to click, I think, with Pryor, Crowder, Ryan Grant even. Chris Thompson looks good. I mean, he has so many options right now that I think it's almost impossible, especially against the Raiders, with the points and the game flow for him to have a bad game. So I like them a lot. I think Ryan Grant this week, with some of the pieces that the Raiders have, I think Ryan Grant at $3,500 is a solid option. I think that he's going to get probably 4 or 5 catches. And if he can break one, awesome. But $3,500, I think he's a good value. And then the guy that I really love this week, and he's probably going to be super chalk with, which pisses me off, is Chris Thompson. Yeah. He looks really good right now. He's going to catch a bunch of balls this week. So for $4,500, I'll have a lot of them either way. So I'm definitely going to be stacking Carr as a hedge, but I'm going to have a lot of Kirk Cousins this week because I think he'll be a little overlooked with everything else going on in the slate.
Yeah, I like that a lot. James, what are you looking at on this one?
Kirk Cousins is too cheap at $6,100.
Yes.
First off, why is every quarterback too cheap this week?
I know, right? It's crazy.
It was crazy this week. Like it allows you to have some fun elsewhere for sure.
Well, that's why you look at a guy like Brady and Rodgers, and I think they're fairly cheap, but there's so much value down low that it's like impossible.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is too cheap. We have him projected really, really well, almost 300 yards and less than 1 interception, which is good for Kirk Cousins right now.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to Terrell Pryor. I'm going to go back to the well.
That's a good move, man.
Perform because he's still getting the targets and he's still down the field and he's gonna it's gonna happen as soon as Kirk Cousins has a good game. I think it's gonna be because Terrell Pryor has a good game.
Week 1, Terrell Pryor had I think 6 for 70 yards or something, and he had like 4 drops, including a touchdown.
I think that Terrell Pryor, I'm just going to go back to it. His price didn't come up too much. I think he's $400 more expensive, $5,900. But I will say Jordan Reed at $5,400 is interesting. I know that he hasn't made a splash yet, but this is a guy that can compete with Gronk for tight end 1 numbers when he is going and when Kirk Cousins is going. So if you think that Kirk Cousins is going to have a good game, I think you have to consider Jordan Reed at $5,400 against an Oakland Raiders team that has been bottom 3 in the league for the last 3 years straight. They haven't added anybody to stop tight ends. They still have a slow linebacker group. They still have no safeties. So Jordan Reed's interesting at $5,400. I'm not going to buy into Chris Thompson because he's looked good. But if he is going to be chalky, if you think he's going to be chalky, I don't think that you can take a backup receiving running back as chalk. I don't think.
I just don't think Rob Kelly is going to – if he plays, I don't think he's going to have full snaps. That's the only reason I like Chris Thompson.
That's fair. I don't think that I want to go there. At $4,500, there's other running backs that I'd rather have that have kind of a more defined role, I guess. But he's looked great, and he's been a good check-down machine. So if Rob Kelly does sit, then I have more interest in Chris Thompson.
Same thing for Reed, by the way. I have a hard time believing that if he plays, it's full. Because he's banged up right now, and he's always banged up. So
he's always banged up.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It just reaffirms me wanting to play Terrell Pryor in every single lineup that I make.
Exactly.
It's going to happen. As soon as Kirk Cousins has a good game, Terrell Pryor's going to have a good game.
If Reed is out, Vernon Davis at home,
and Vernon Davis is good, dude.
Yeah, I know.
A great athlete. On the other side, Derek Carr is good. We have him throw 36 times. My only issue with him is that he doesn't really pass down the field as much as these other kind of elite quarterbacks do. If I'm going to pay up at quarterback, it probably won't be for Carr. It'll be for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, Derek Carr will be the more popular option. You guys are right that these high-priced quarterbacks aren't going to get much traffic because everybody else is $6K, so why pay up? So that makes me like Rodgers a little bit more as a GPP option because his ceiling is probably higher than any other quarterback on this slate.
Yep.
Sure.
I
will say, whoever is popular between Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, I want the other one.
Yeah, so go Cooper.
Yeah. Well, I don't know because Amari Cooper is now cheaper than Michael.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So if people
flip-flopped.
People should think that Crabtree is the number 1 wide receiver. He's only $300 more. I want him. But everybody likes Amari Cooper more, and he's cheaper. So whoever is the less condensed one, whoever is less chalky, that's the one that I want. And I won't have either one in cash, but in tournaments, I want the other one. And I think it's going to be Amari Cooper, and I want Amari Cooper because he's very good, and I think that he can explode way more than Michael Crabtree can.
Yes.
Other than those two, Jared Cook is fine. Like you mentioned, Zach Ertz ripped them apart. They got ripped apart by tight ends 2 weeks in a row. I'm fine with Jared Cook. But I mostly want Amari Cooper if he's less popular. And then on the other side, I want all the Terrell Pryor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's well said. Carr, like you said, Carr and Cousins both in play. I love Cousins this week. If you want to be just cheesy, like last week happened, do you want to be winning all your lineups before the Sunday night game and then realize, oh, crap, I don't have any of these explosive offenses? I don't, personally, because you watch everything disappear. But Cousins with Pryor is a 1-2 punch for me over and over again. I like Crabtree. I like Cooper. I agree. If you want to check out FanShare or whatever projection site you use, that's a good angle. I really, really like the mention you guys made of Vernon Davis. If Reed is out, Vernon Davis at 3,000 is very, very nice in that matchup. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. But lots of good toys in this one. one thing I'll say, since you guys hit all the important stuff, is if you're playing these guys, make sure that at least one of them is in your flex in case you need to make things different later on. Don't put them early. But that's my one suggestion there. Let's go to Monday night, the final game of the week. Cowboys at Cardinals. Dallas is a 3-point road favorite, over under 47, which I do not agree with at all. But James, what do you have in the weekend cap or week cap?
The total is 47 for this game?
Right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm going to.
It's 47 and it's only a 3-point spread. That's what's insane.
Play your Sunday, Monday lineups and don't play any Monday night. Just call me later.
How much does it cost? 8,300, dude. Give me Ezekiel to chew all the clock after the first quarter when the Cardinals can't score anything against an underrated Dallas defense. That is hilarious.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so Arizona's not going to run the ball at all. We have them projected for 32% run plays out of 63, so they're going to pass. You can go back to J.J. Nelson if you'd like, but he's now 5,300. One thing to note is that Jerron Brown got as many targets as J.J. Nelson.
A lot of targets. Yep.
Just didn't get a 50-yard touchdown pass, which crushed my soul last week. So
I called it, man. We called it.
Yeah. I have more interest in Jerron Brown, I suppose, and God, I don't think I can touch Larry Fitzgerald for the rest of his career. He can't get separation. He doesn't look good. He can't run hard. He can't get down the field. It's not Carson Palmer that's washed, man. It is Larry Fitzgerald, and I can't go back to that. That was so bad. So I like Jerron Brown, and I'm fine with J.J. Nelson. I think J.J. Nelson will be the focal point of that offense moving forward, but I don't think they'll score a lot of points. So just give me Ezekiel Elliott, and probably, well, you could give me Des Bryant because he's gotten like 10 red zone targets. Hold on. He's gotten 10 red zone targets and only converted one of them.
Yes, because he's soft.
He is soft, but guess who's not a hard press cornerback? Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
Who will be on him all game. Here's another fact. Des Bryant has scored a touchdown in every single game that Patrick Peterson has covered him in. Every single game.
So, that is interesting.
If you're playing Monday night, I like Des Bryant more than anybody else in this game, and then it's Ezekiel Elliott, and then it's the Dallas defense.
Yeah, and I agree with everything. Dez is sneaky just because even with the bad matchups, getting targeted over and over and over again. The other guy I'd mention, and he might be chalky, and I hate the $4,500 tag, but if he's not throwing it to Dez, he's throwing it to Jason Witten. So if you believe in all that hoopla, that's your other Monday night guy for me. Otherwise, like I said, I might not have any Monday night guys, but Bryant and Witten would be the two I look at. And I love the Brown call. I was paying attention to that earlier this week. He got a ton of targets, just didn't convert. And I think the targets will still be there. What do you got, Bucks?
Cowboys suck.
Your weekly disclaimer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not playing any of them. I'm not playing this game. I'm not playing any of them. I could get behind Zeke. I can't get behind Dez. I don't care. I would be so tilted that he drops 4 red zone touchdowns. But how is maybe like I don't know if we had the same thoughts as every other person on the planet last week, but J.J. Nelson's ownership last week was just ridiculous. Like I thought when he scored that touchdown, that's the first thing I went to look at was his ownership. And then I was like my soul was crushed that his ownership was 20-something%.
It's crazy.
I was like, good Lord, man. But I guess that's why his price jumped so much. So, but that's all I got for this game. I'm not playing it. I mean, Zeke's the only guy you could potentially get behind. That's it.
Yeah. All right. We hit every game. 16 games. Before we take off, give me 3 of your core players and a bold prediction. We'll start with you, James.
Thank you.
Oh, man. All right. Okay, so bold prediction, first off. I'm going to say that the Detroit Lions don't score more than 10 points against the Atlanta.
Oh, man.
Woo!
I like that.
Yeah, there's my bold call. I don't know. They kind of tie things together by a shoestring, and if their defense isn't performing, I think they kind of crumble. My 3 locks for the week are going to be, I love LaShawn McCoy at his price tag. I think that LaShawn McCoy at his price tag is a lock for cash game value. If he doesn't get 15 points, I'll eat a hat on the next broadcast. Pull a little draft sheet there. My next lock is going to be Melvin Gordon, and then my third lock is going to be Keenan Allen.
Man.
I really like the Chargers this week, and it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well,
What about you, Bucks?
I appreciate you leaving me Jay Ajayi. So thank you for that.
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna go last next week now.
Yeah. My 3 locks would be Ajayi, would be Sanu, and then non-chalk. Well, I don't know if it's somebody chalk. I was gonna say Antonio Brown, but that's just obvious. I'll say Terrell Pryor. I think he's a lock this week. What was the other thing you asked?
Bold prediction.
Bold prediction. I think that the total for the Panthers-Saints game is under 40.
Okay.
And I'm saying it could even be under 35 points total.
All right.
I don't hate that.
Yeah.
It's just got a few.
All right. My bold prediction, since you took my lock, Jay Ajayi has over 200 combined yards rushing and passing, or rushing and receiving, and 2 touchdowns.
Love it.
He goes nuts this weekend. So thus he'd be a lock, but we won't go there quite yet. I am taking Keenan Allen. I professed my love for him already once. Keenan Allen is a must-play for me. And then I love Pryor, but I'm going to go a little different also. Emmanuel Sanders. I do like him in that matchup there because he's going to get fed. He'll get you double-digit points at mid or $5,800. It's not horrible. And then the only other one, because it's a game that no one likes, no one mentioned him on this. Give me Jack Doyle at 3,600 against Cleveland.
Brad.
All right, gentlemen.
See ya.
Great stuff. Week 3 is in the bags. I guess any final words before we take it out?
Let's go Redskins.
Yeah, go
James?
Panthers. 50 points.
Oh, did you guys want to make a bet on Green or Hopkins, or you just want to do it on Twitter?
Entry in Hopkins. No,
Landry and Hopkins.
we both like them. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think he overperforms. He thinks he underperforms. So we'll get there on Twitter. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
It'll be fun. But until then, guys, good stuff as always. Week 3 in the bags. This was the 2-point conversion NFL DFS pod. We'll catch you guys next week. We're out.